Good evening and welcome to The Square. Tonight's discussion is going to focus on Umushyikirano, also known as the National Dialogue. The edition of 2019 Umushyikirano is going to start tomorrow until Friday. But tonight we are going to look at Umushyikirano 2018 and review some of the resolutions that occurred. In particular, we're also going to look at the role of civil society in the implementation process of some of these resolutions. Joining this show with us, we have Sam Dusenyumva, who is the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Local Governance. Sam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And also joining us, looking at the role civil society plays in implementing resolutions of national dialogues, we have with us Mr. Dr. Joseph, Yaras Nkurunziza, who is the spokesperson for the Rwanda Civil Society Platform. Dr. Joseph, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
And this is your second time on The Square, I believe.
I guess it's not the last.
No, it's not the last. My name is Denan PC, host of The Square. I am joined by our resident panelist of The Square, Charles Haba. Charles, always a pleasure to have you.
So, Dana, how are you?
Great.
Good.
Our other resident panelist is Bryna Namata. Unfortunately, she's not with us today, but I'm sure she's watching from wherever she is. So as we usually do on The Square with resident panelists, we have a midweek highlights, key things that caught our attention during the week. And Charles, I know there's some few highlights you'd like to share with us. Also on behalf of Bryna, who's not here tonight.
I'm sure Bryna and I would have liked to talk about the City Council of Kigali and the direction around moving people out of the high-risk zone and the way that has been very militantly handled. But I will desist from that because I think that may come up during the show, because in terms of our expectations in the 2019 Umushyikirano. And I just want to talk about the impeachment of Donald Trump. I highly doubt he's going to survive this.
You highly doubt?
Yes. I think the Senate might bail him out, but he's in for impeachment. He wrote a very desperate tweet earlier today,
saying what?
Insinuating that he wishes it doesn't happen to any other American president. Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, let's see how that works out, yeah.
So Dr. Joseph and Permanent Secretary Mr. Sam Dusenyumva, thank you for joining the show. You're here in your capacity as Ministry of Local Government because there's a couple of things, some key resolutions that we'd like to focus on. There were 8 that were passed in 2018, but we're going to focus on 2 of them because obviously we don't have time to look at all 8 in depth. So the first is to start with the 3rd resolution, the 2018 Umushyikirano 2018 resolution. The 3rd one, which was to improve strategies aimed at promoting the population's welfare and review the process of allowing those in the 2nd category of Ubudehe to work again in remunerated activities within the framework of Vision 2020 Umurenge program. This is VUP. So if you could give us a snapshot before I hand over to you to also learn from you, Dr. Joseph, on the role civil society plays in implementing these resolutions. Can you give us a snapshot of what has been done so far regarding this resolution, regarding Ubudehe and the VUP, the program?
Thank you, Diana, for inviting us. Let me, first of all, give a little bit of background about this whole Ubudehe and categorization background.
Yes.
You know, the government of Rwanda has put a lot of efforts in fighting poverty. And for the last few years, with the start of National Strategy for Transformation, the focus has been put on 2 categories, extreme poverty and poverty. And numbers done by the National Institute of Statistics have clearly defined these target groups. I was following up a report by RBA that over the last 10 years, over 200 billion Rwandese francs has been put in this fight against poverty programs. In the past, the focus has been put on, all the categories, and then as early as 2015, it was decided that a lot of effort should be put on category 1 of Ubudehe, that is extreme
poverty. Yes.
And really, a lot of programs were focused there, including Ubudehe, VUP, Public Works, direct support, so many programs that were really targeting poor people, extremely poor people, to ensure that they really cross that bridge to at least in the poverty line. However, last year, in the Umushyikirano Council, it was realized that there were many people who have crossed that bridge to 2nd category, but who are falling back. And then
into the first category.
Yes, yes. The resolution was, let us find a way to make these people, find work so that they can at least continue and maybe, obviously, reach the third category and become resilient to all the shocks that can bring them back. So the resolution was to explore ways to put these people under VUP because that was the only, framework of public works that was available at the time. So during the process of trying to find a solution to that, it was realized that there could be another alternative, and that was what we call HIMO. HIMO is a short for Haute Intensité de Main-d'œuvre, which is a program where you have all the investment programs of the government that are mainly targeting the rural areas that are going to be involving public works. So the concept is, if you have to invest money into a district, 70% of this money should be for public works, where the citizens are going to be employed and be paid. So this program that was launched with the guidelines that was issued by the local government organization that is in charge of development of the local government, that's NOLDA. So it really set the boundaries of this program and included people of the second category. But this program, because targeting people who are in the second category, who are likely to really graduate to the third category, because they have the labor force, they have a little bit of skills compared to those who are in the first category. So the program also includes some other, accompanying measures, including a very compulsory saving scheme and some capacity development programs to ensure that these people, they can, cross the bridge of working for money and maybe start some businesses, save to, address some of the other issues that affect, this poverty group. So the main thing that has been done is
since last year, at least, yes,
the development and rollout of the HIMO program, which is currently, has been rolled out into all the districts except the district of Kigali, it's the city of Kigali. So we have it running into 27 districts. And then so far we have 11,000 people who are already benefiting from this program, including people of the second category.
Can you just quickly give us a breakdown of this? How do they benefit? Like tangible examples?
Yeah, so it's like VUP. They are engaged in public works.
And by public works, you mean
mainly terraces. Doing terraces.
Yes.
Second is building homes for vulnerable people, and then the works that involve marshlands. So these are mainly the works that have started with the first generation of this HIMO program. But the concept is, where you have to invest money into rural areas, let it be 70% for public works for the citizens to be able to get works.
Okay. I think we'll have a deeper dive towards as we carry on in the program. And Dr. Joseph, you're here in your capacity. I know you're the executive of Never Again Rwanda, but you're here in your capacity tonight as a spokesperson for the Rwanda Civil Society Platform. And of course, these things that happen by coordinating institutions, by government to implement these resolutions cannot be done without the voice and the actions of the civil society. So not necessarily to do with the first question of Ubudehe, but if you can shed some light on us on what is your role in implementing some of these key resolutions following national dialogue sessions?
Yeah, thank you, Dan, and it's always a pleasure to join the square to interesting issues that you share with the society. One, I think when it comes to governance and democracy, civil society is key, because you can't achieve sustainable democracy or good governance if there is no civil society to make sure that there is always checks and balances, and also holding the leaders accountable. So when it comes to putting into action some of the resolutions from the Umushyikirano Council, I think one thing that after the Umushyikirano, what happens is that concerned institutions come up with strategies how to make sure that these resolutions are acted upon. For example, the third resolution you did mention, in March this year, the Minister of Local Government reviewed the social protection policy. And what the ministry did, invited all key stakeholders, the civil society, the religious groups, media, name them. So we had a conference and provided inputs on how this policy should be reviewed. And civil society played the key role whereby the civil society sensitized the population so that they can suggest how the categories can improve. Some few years back, some civil society organizations worked hand in hand with RODA in supporting the social protection initiatives, where they provided, they supported the one cow per family.
Yes.
So civil society has been active even through the sector working groups and also the technical working groups within the various institutions that are concerned with some of the resolution that the Umushyikirano recommends. Another area is when you read some of the resolutions, there is one that focuses on genocide prevention and making sure that youth are informed about the history of the genocide against the Tutsi. So there are civil society organizations that are involved into peace building. So these organizations work with the National Unity and Reconciliation Commission and also the Commission Against the Genocide to make sure that the dissemination of information regarding preservation of memory or maybe fighting the genocide ideology is disseminated within the community. So this is done by the civil society organizations which are in that area of peace building. So as I said, civil society is key when it comes to good governance because it can't be achieved. Good governance or democracy or citizen participation can't be achieved single-handedly. So it requires a combined effort where the civil society plays a key role.
A key role.
Yeah.
Charles, would you like to weigh?
Yeah, I'm tickled by what Daktari just talked about, the role of civil society in the implementation of the resolutions around Umushyikirano. And I want to take a particular example to what we're talking about, the categorization of Ubudeo, because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Bona PS, it's purely around poverty alleviation and getting people to the next level of their social status. Now, you did mention in your remarks, PS, that you wanted to get people from Category 1 to Category 2 and get people in Category 2 to start working because you had realized that some of them were moving backwards. Now, I want to take a particular bone of contention with the way categorization works and probably throw a spanner in the works by saying people were most likely put in categories that they did not belong to. And we are trying to fix a problem of giving them employment because in the first place they did not belong there. You remember somewhere between the 2018 Umushyikirano and the 2019 Umushyikirano, there is a story that went viral, I think somewhere in Nyabihu or in the northern province, I stand to be corrected, of I think it was in the west, so of a couple that was forced to wed and yet I think you have to be in a certain category for you to actually prove that you can have a civil marriage. Now, because, and this is the problem I have around the whole Mihigo and the way they are done. So every mayor, wherever they are, they want to make sure that their district looks good so that they can get very good marks. So my specific question to you, Joseph, considering that these people in local government, their categorization is suspect,
We'll wait to hear from the PS to clarify.
What is your role exactly in that space? So make sure that people are put in their right places, and what we read in papers is actually what is on the ground. Yes.
Yeah, of course. What I can say that during the revision process, and we are also waiting to hear when the new categorization will be out. We did meet these complaints where citizens were saying that no, you know, I was supposed to be in category 2, but I ended up being put in category 3. Yeah, some were put into category 1 or category, and yet they were supposed to be in a certain category. Of course, I would say that the blame goes to the local leaders. They are human, but some civil society organizations, for example, Transparency International, they did mention this in some of their previous studies. You know, each year they come up with a bravery perception index. They did come up with these findings, which they did share with the Ministry of Local Government. And we discovered that there is need for both the Ministry of Local Government and RODA to work with the civil society so as to minimize the errors that were done in the past.
Or the cooking of figures, for that matter.
Doctoring.
Yes.
So, so that we can contribute towards creating transparency and also ensuring that people go to the right categorization, so that we can be able to uplift the poor from extreme poverty.
PS, I know you're not here in detail to talk about categorization per se. We were looking at the financial services that will facilitate the movement from, you know, a certain category to another one. But can you briefly, especially in response to Charles's, I would say, exaggerated statement, would you care to just clarify?
At the risk of putting me on the wall, the good doctor, who is the spokesman for the civil society, just called it doctoring.
Do you care to clarify Charles and Dr. Joseph's statements?
Absolutely. I know Charles is very...
He's very vocal.
He's very vocal about this.
Yes.
But the thing is, the government has been putting a lot of efforts into fighting poverty.
Yes.
And in fact, our president likes to talk about eradicating poverty. We are not born poor. It is just a state of situation, and we can get out of it. So categorization, let's use like criteria to determine how we can go about different, situations of our citizens, how we can uplift them from the situation. It is as simple as that. So I think before Ogudehe,
yes,
poverty was there. And a lot of effort was being put in place, but with no clear indication how we can measure the performance. Because as you know, accountability in our government is very, very important. So you need to know from the onset how much you want to do and to who. So categorization is that framework. So what has happened, and which is actually very, very interesting, like my colleague from the civil society said, the Ministry of Local Government is very open to receiving comments on how we can improve this framework where we work into fighting poverty.
Yes,
so it has been noted, especially from the feedback from our citizens, that the categorization was not reflecting, one, the real situation of the citizen, two, indicating how people can graduate. In fact, different stakeholders, including the World Bank, they came to us and said, guys, you're doing a good work in terms of determining the criteria for selection when you're implementing the policies, but maybe you can improve it with objective criteria to determine how somebody can move from from a level to another one, and to ensure that it is dynamic. Because in a number of cases it was realized that somebody has been categorized in category 1, but even when the person has reached category 3, there is no system, framework that can indicate that that person has actually graduated. So what we're trying to do with the revision of Ubudehe, which is a process that we wanted to be as inclusive as possible, and we even took it to the citizens, so that we really collect the feedbacks, is to ensure that we have put in place all the inputs so that in the future we can really indicate how much we're doing. What the government is trying to achieve is to know how much our efforts are really having an impact on our citizens. So I think when we have that process concluded, which is actually very, very drawing to the end, we're going to really have a very good system, and we really want to enhance two things. One is graduation. We want to ensure that our citizens are graduating.
And there's upward mobility between
absolutely. And dynamism to ensure that we can clearly say at any given time that somebody like Sam has crossed the bridge between category 2 to category 3. Or you are at the verge of really falling back. To have all those information in real time so that it can help decision making and really focus our efforts where they're really needed.
And the second one?
So I talked about graduation and then dynamism. To ensure that we have systems which can collect data, and in real time we can have data, we can have information that can clearly indicate how much we're doing and who are the people that we should be targeting at a given time.
Charles, I hope that's a satisfactory answer.
It may not be, but in the interest of time, let's move on.
But thank you very much for clarification on that. So the next. This is all about human capital. The resolutions that we're focusing on are in terms of building human capital. Now, last year, I remember in the last Umushyikirano and meetings previous and after that, Rwandans were really shocked to learn that around 38% of children are malnourished or stunted. And this particular resolution, the fifth resolution from Umushyikirano 2018, was to coordinate the planning and implementation in all relevant institutions to fast-track the elimination of malnutrition and stunting amongst children. Now, I know this is a coordinated, it is an issue that deals with different institutions, coordinating from the Ministry of Education to different ministries and different government agencies, including the Ministry of Local Government. From your perspective, from where you sit, can you share with us any progress that has been made in reducing this alarming number of children who are malnourished or stunted?
Thank you very much for the question. I think, first of all, malnutrition or stunting are symptoms of poverty. And as it has been shown by the Rwanda Development and Health Survey of 2014 and 2015, actually 47% of kids in the poorest quintile, a group of people who are really at the lowest level of poverty, 47% of the kids are malnourished and they are stunted. So you can realize that whenever you talk about poverty, malnutrition, it becomes a factor. It is even worse because this malnutrition has the potential to make a person to have an effect of a lifelong effect on the kid. Actually, to even undermine the capacity of that person to be able to contribute and maybe graduate at some point. So for us, we take it very, very seriously. And that is how, in our interventions to category 1 of Ubudehe, there are a number of measures that targets poor families, including direct support. In addition to giving poor families work, public work, access to public work, families with infants are given a certain level of support, financial support, to sustain them. So there are some other support that are given. For example, they are given some, there is some flour they are given to prepare some porridge in the house for the kids. There's quite a number of initiatives that are targeting these families that have children who are suffering from stunting, just to ensure that as much as we are focusing on those who have the potential of labor force, we are also targeting these young ones who are below 5, so that we ensure that by the time they grow up, they can have a chance to make it in life and probably graduate from the situation of their families.
Does Minalok play a role, or do you coordinate with the Ministry of Education in the school feeding programs?
Yeah, we coordinate not only...
Or you deal specifically with homes?
No, we intervene in the framework of VUP, But also, at a bigger scale, the national ECD program,
Yes.
which is coordinated under the Ministry of Gender and Family Planning, is Prof,
Yes.
and under the national ECD program coordination, we work together to ensure that all the policies in that field are properly implemented. We also work together to ensure that for this special category of the poorest and extreme poverty, the programs are coordinated. We have come up with the joint action plan to ensure that all the stakeholders, because the number of stakeholders involved, are coordinated, and efforts are actually, focusing on people who really need help, but also we can be able to have a more efficient way of, moving from a geographical area to another, because it has been realized in the past that sometimes you find different stakeholders coming on one beneficiary with limited monitoring on how the interventions are really achieving the intended outcome.
And very quickly, before I open the panel to Dr. Joseph and Charles, the 38% of children who are malnourished or stunted that was revealed in last year's Umushyikirano, has that number gone down? Is it easy to say? I know it's a direct question, but I know it's not simple to answer. Do you have those statistics already? I mean, is that going to be divulged tomorrow and the day after at the National Dialogue?
Yeah, absolutely. Numbers are going to be talked about. And really, if you look at the initiative that has been put in place, including school feeding, including providing milk to the kids, especially in a number of those most affected districts, where the kids have been given a cup of milk. There's quite a number of really programs, and we do believe that the effect is being felt then on the ground.
Dr. Joseph, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, one, I think addressing issues regarding malnutrition or stunting, it requires a combination of efforts. We need to go beyond providing food or milk. We need to look at what is causing malnutrition. Why are kids stunting? When you look at some of the civil society organizations that are into this area, you find that there is ignorance within the society. The family has hens which are producing eggs,
yes.
But these eggs are taken to the market. Then the woman will give the money to the husband to go and drink, instead of giving the eggs to
some of the eggs.
Yeah, some of the eggs. So, two, there is also an issue related with family planning. So, irrespective of the fact that we are seeing some decrease from 6 to 5 to 4, but I think the size of the family should also go hand in hand with the size of the land. Because if families have enough land, they are going to practice subsistence farming, where they will have different types of foods. But you find a family with 4 or 5 children living on a plot of 300 square meters. That piece of land is not enough both for the house, but also maybe the kitchen garden, so that they can have some vegetables or etc. So, yeah, we can keep providing additional foodstuffs, but we might not be able to address the causes of stunting. Of course, it is poverty, but then how can we be able to educate the society so that there is a decrease in ignorance, but also making sure that our families, our relatives are having kids that they are able to feed. Yeah. So that's why I was saying that we need to look at the real causes of
not just treating the
symptoms. Not treating the symptoms, because I know the government has injected in a lot of money development partners have injected in a lot of money, but why is it that the stunting is not decreasing? So we need to sit and try to address ignorance, the root causes, ignorance. We need to make sure that we invest a lot in family planning so that families should be responsible, should have the number of children that they are capable of supporting, and also depending on the resources they have. Yeah.
Well, a little bit related to my reaction previously, and again, back to the role of civil society. Why do we have to wait for Umushyikirano to know that 38% of our kids are malnourished and they are stunted? Bwana PS, every district has an advisory council, and you keep dropping down to sector level, to cell level, and all the way up to Mudugudu level. So I'm wondering, some of these issues, you see, like the pointers that Dr. is raising, they seem like basic ideas. There are schools in these places. We've invested heavily in 9-year basic education and what have you, and now even 12-year basic education. What are these teachers? What knowledge are they imparting into society? What impact are they having up to the society? Why do we have to wait for this meeting that takes place once in 2 years to come up with a national strategy of feeding our children? So I think there is a gap. There is actually a gap. There is a gap in our administrative structures, especially local administrative structures, that should ensure that issues of such magnitude are addressed at that level. If those structures are there and they are not doing their job, then it's back to our earlier worry of doctoring, that we are deliberately painting a rosy picture so that things look good, yet they are not good. Yes.
If I may comment on that.
Yes,
I think the point of Charles is a little bit overestimated, because yes, we know poverty is not something you can fight in a year or two. Second, I think there is progress. We need to see progress, and I'm very optimistic that if we can really build on those progress, we find across all the district, we find different innovative initiatives coming from the grassroots. And that is how actually we are now trying to orient our interventions. There is a concept that is called home-based ECD. These are, frameworks which are going to be involving, citizens in their mudugudu, where they can really get together and try to have a common understanding around this issue of malnutrition and try to do something about it. And the intervention of the state is going to be supporting those initiatives to ensure that at least.
So the initiatives will be owned on a grassroots level.
Absolutely.
They'll be owned and implemented by citizens on a grassroots level.
The fathers in the place, in the mudugudu.
Yes.
And then these kids are going to be gathered there. And the mothers and the fathers are going to be, given some capacity building programs about the nutrition requirements, about some of the things that are available in the neighborhood, which can really help address some of these issues. What Charles is saying, which makes sense, I think there is a need for a constant improvement to ensure that what is happening on the ground reflects our interventions. And I think that is a continuous undertaking. And as a matter of fact, for the last few months, there's been discussion around how to really review the structures to ensure that we really try to reduce the size at higher levels at the district, to try to really increase the presence in terms of staff at sector level and even going to the cell level. It's in that framework, really, trying to really get closer to the citizen and try to collect information about what is happening and do something about it, but in partnership with the citizens who deal with the issue on a daily basis. On the issue of discussing some of these issues, I think they are discussed on a regular basis. Recently, the number of times that citizens interact with their leadership has been given another room. We used to have what we call Nekozabaturagi, that is a citizen outreach program every Tuesday afternoon. When citizens are done with their regular works, they can get together with their leaders and discuss about the issues, a wide range of issues that are facing their communities. Now it was realized that in some areas, the issues were not, being, the rate of issues that are being addressed was not meeting the expectations. And it was decided maybe we can have another day where the citizen can be meeting all these leaders from the province, even the ministers, to the lower level to discuss most of these issues. And as early as November, we engage citizens.
November this year?
Yes, yes. We engage citizens into the planning to ensure that even the budget, the national budget, is going to be reflecting the views from Mudugudu, so that the citizens really can be the one to determine what the government action is going to be.
As it should be.
Yes,
that's how it should be. So basically, right now, from where we're standing in December,
yes,
hopefully we're going to have this conversation, not next year, December, Umushyikirano.
Yes.
These are conversations I think people need to be having at least every quarter.
Absolutely.
Is it possible that we'll have some actual feedback on this new citizen-centered engagement where leaders will be meeting citizens?
Absolutely.
Are we going to have some more details? Because it's something you said that you just started implementing last month.
No, it was being implemented.
Yes, but I
now
mean, additional efforts.
Additional efforts are going to keep on increasing.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, like you said, even throughout the budgeting process and the budget implementation, now we want to be, before it was engaging them in the planning. Now we decided, let us engage them in the planning, because when you have already determined the priorities, you go into the budgeting.
Yes.
Even in the budgeting, we're going to engage them. In the Mihigo signing, we're going to engage them. Even in the implementation, when we are halfway done, we're going to be involving the citizens. And this time around, we also brought on board the civil society, all the civil society organizations, to ensure that in this process, we can work together to address the issue of not only the engagement, but also the empowerment of the citizen to validly contribute to what is happening. Because engagement is one thing, but also empowerment.
Yes.
To have citizens who can really actively engage the government is another thing.
Very quickly, I want us to go to the next part of the show. Of course, we don't have as much time as we'd like to have, but this is to do with, and first of all, PS, I know you can't divulge the details of Umushyikirano 2019, what's going to be talked about tomorrow and the day after on Friday, but I'd just like to ask the panelists on the show, what are some key issues you would expect to be tackled or you'd like to see addressed, with sort of tangible outcomes in the next 2 days of national dialogue? And Dr. Joseph, if we can be very brief, we have a few minutes left, at least one or two things that you wish to see not only talked about, but with key outcomes.
Yeah, one, I think, and I hope that one of the key issues that will be touched on is education, because we've had lots of policies and there are some issues with the products that have been
produced
through those policies too. I think there is also, I hope agriculture will be talked about, because we've also been having lots of policies, monoculture, and these cooperatives involved in the Irish potato business.
Yes.
And of course, I hope that they'll also be able to touch on service delivery, because if we want to have an effective governance and also trying to address the issues of the citizens, we need to make sure that the service delivery is well done. Because if it comes to corruption is there because maybe citizens have failed to receive proper services. So I think, to me, education, agriculture, and service delivery should be among the key issues to be discussed.
Charles?
For me, two things. I want to agree with Dr. on service delivery, and we're glad to have the PS here. Across board, especially around the districts, the sectors, the service delivery is really below par. It's extremely awful, to say the least. And we want people to have their services. We want to be able to get something as simple as ichangombwa chogusa and get it on time. Response, talking to people. You walk into an office and you find the line of a notary is a kilometer long. We want some of those things to really be Service delivery is a big problem. The second thing by far is communication. You know, if we were to award marks out of 10, the government of Rwanda is a very, very poor communicator. Probably give it 1.5 out of 10. Today we want to study in English, and then after 1 week we want to study in Kinyarwanda. The other day you sack students, you tell students, no, you're going to get your degrees in medicine, and then when it comes to getting the degree, say no, you need 5 more months before you get your degree in medicine. Today we say cars are passing here, and then you say no, I think there's a change in mind. Next week, starting onwards, they are not going to pass there. Now today we are looking at we're staring at a situation where we're saying we have given people 2 years to move out of high risk zones, and we said, okay, fine, you have to immediately move, but even though you're going to move, we don't have where to put you. And then when they make noise, we say, no, first go to that primary school, the children are on holiday. And, you know, it appears as if the government of Rwanda is always managing things by extinguishing fires. I think we can do better. And I have said this before on the square. Most of the government institutions have underlooked the importance of the function of PR and communication. You don't see this in the army, you don't see this in the police. Those are two institutions and the Ministry of Defense, naturally, that communicate extremely efficiently. I wonder why the other institutions...
So you're saying other government agencies can learn a thing or two from Ministry of Defense or our police and military services?
But generally speaking, we are poor communicators. Our government it's one of the areas that I would like to see improved. And one issue that I would like to see addressed in the next in the Umushyikirano that starts tomorrow.
The next 2 days.
Yes.
P.S. I know you're here representing government, so I don't know personally if there's some things you'd like to see addressed, or you're going to talk as a permanent secretary. But if you can also weigh in on this question.
Maybe he'll be presenting.
Oh, maybe you'll be presenting. Are you on a panel?
No, I'm not. But
or what can we expect? Maybe you can give us a general overview.
From the discussions, we know we're going to have 2 presentations, one every day. We're going to have a presentation about the growth, double-digit growth.
Double-digit growth, yeah.
And then we're going to have another one about, resilience in the families. So, but I think there is one key thing that my colleague from the civil society talked about, which really can, as we contribute as citizens, we, as the government, is seated to listen to us. I think there is a need really to work on the mindset. There is a need to really kind of have a mind shift in terms of really understanding the role of the citizens into reaping from all the good things that are happening in this country. Like, say, there's some of the things that really do not require funds that can be done. And you see it when you move around the country, when you meet citizens. You find categories in one village where part of the citizens have been able to reap and do something, and others are just running. I think the issue of mindset, if we have to work together, because the government is really committed to move fast, and I think as we contribute, as really try to work together during this kind of framework of discussion where the entire country is seated to determine the future, the role of the citizens to say, okay, the government is putting this on the table, this is my contribution. We can also be at the providing end, not always be on the receiving end. I think that is critical. We see it happening, but if you can have a much faster pace, it can really be a very good added value to what is happening. Yeah.
I just want us to very quickly go through our Twitter feed before we close. We have a couple of tweets of our viewers who are not asking to what they would like to see discussed on the square, but also what they would like to see discussed at Umushyikirano 2019. And the first tweet we have from Hoffman, who says, I would love to see them discuss about the issue in medical school. The fact that more than 350 graduates of 2019 had to be put back to school for 5 more months before accepting them as medical interns. I would love for them to also discuss the price hike of different commodities. So this is our first tweet. We're also going to go to our next tweet. And Charles, this tweet, it echoed what you're talking about. the education and so forth and so on. Our next tweet is from Laura, who says they would like to see a discussion on master plans of cities that are in perpetual preparation or review at the cost of significant funds spent. In places like Nyamata and surrounding areas, Ruhenzi, Muhanga, it's pitiful to see an anarchic urbanization. Let's have a national MP of all cities once and for all. What do you say to that? Is it even technically possible to have one master plan for all cities? I know we
but
have
I think that's also around communication, because that has changed quite a bit. A lot of uncertainty. I know we also had this discussion with the vice mayor here on the square around.
Like different cities.
Yes. You know, people need to know what's happening. They invest in land, they invest in property, they pay taxes for that property, and for you to live in perpetual uncertainty, it's not helpful at all.
Not helpful.
Yeah.
Our last tweet for today is from BG, and BG's tweet states that NUC should approve, 1, invest in community assets, intensify agricultural technologies targeting smallholders, including CC adaptation, livelihood diversification, reliable infrastructure, mostly rural roads, and expand social protection to all vulnerable groups. So I think most of what they're saying is what we've discussed on the show. And yes, I think we've come to the end of this show. Dr. Joseph, thank you very much for coming to the show. Are you attending Umushyikirano?
Yes.
How does one attend? Did you get an invitation?
No, of course.
Do you sign up?
No, I'm part of civil society. So,
okay.
And as I said that you can't achieve sustainable democracy without civil society.
Civil society.
With that.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining the show. We'll be watching online and on television. Charles, thank you for joining the show.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Yes, and
yes.
PS Dusenjumba, thank you very much for honoring our invitation and representing government, specifically Ministry of Local Government, on the show.
Thank you for
And I will be hoping to see you on a panel tomorrow or the day after.
Yeah, I hope so.
Hopefully. Well, thank you for watching the show. To our viewers, please keep the conversation going using the hashtag #TheSquareRW. And to our partners, Uzi Collections and Bourbon Coffee, thank you very much for always supporting The Square. Thank you. Have a good night, and see you again next week.